Hi everyone, we're back with another episode of the Artis with Ivy Reiss. We're a show that focuses on the 905 and GTA art and culture scene with compelling interviews with poets, hosts, personalities, and movers and shakers in this area. We're hosted out of ThatChannel.com, obviously, and we're back with our 7th episode. Today, our guest is Pat Connors. He's a GTA poet. He's been on the scene since 2005. He runs the most important event, 100,000 Poets for Change, which is a worldwide event. It takes place in over 120 countries. It's international, annual, and today we're going to be talking about what got him into that, his Canadian connection to the American founders, his link to Cuba, his latest works, and more. Everyone, please welcome Pat Connors.
Thank you for having me, Ivy.
So, I guess let's just start off. What got you into the scene? I know that you were an online journalist for News for You, and you were drawn to social topics from the start. You wrote about mental health and other social concerns. You're currently raising money for Shannen's Dream. We're going to talk a little bit more about that. And she was an Attawapiskat girl who, First Nations girl who died tragically, but made a lot of changes for the community. Definitely. And you have 2 chapbooks to your name and a 3rd full-length poetry collection, Scarborough's Songs and Part-Time Contemplative, which have done really well with Lyrical Miracle. And then you launched Bottom of the Wine Jar in Cuba in 2017, January. And that kind of changed you, from what I understand. But let's start off with when you got onto the scene. I think you started Cryptic Chatter, which was run by Valentino Essenza, who hosts Howl Radio right now.
That's right. I was taking a short story writing course at George Brown College and met Duncan Armstrong. Mm-hmm. And the only reason I wasn't taking a poetry writing course was because there wasn't enough people to keep the course going. So I took short story writing. I've also written a lot of short stories in my life. And Duncan said, "Oh, you're a poet. Oh, you need to come to this reading series." And then he introduced me to Cryptic Chatter, which was at the Renaissance Cafe,
right,
Woodbine and Danforth area, right around where we're having our event tomorrow night for 100,000 Poets for Change. And I went and I signed up to read on the open mic, and Valentino said, "If you're crappy, you're coming off after the first poem." I think he was just trying to razz me after read the first poem.
That blunt.
Not at all. Valentino is a wonderful person. He's done a lot for me. He's done a lot for other poets as well, and very grateful to him for everything he's done for me. So I read the first poem, and then I said, "Was that all right?" He was like, "Yeah, keep going." So then I read my other 2 poems, and then continued to be a regular there for the next 4 years until it sadly disbanded. But before it disbanded, that was where I got my first feature in the fall of 2008. I had the honor of featuring at that great series.
Well, I think it's actually, the scene has changed quite a bit since then. There is certainly not a lack of poets on the GTA scene now.
That is true.
And it's really, poetry is on a comeback for sure.
Definitely.
I predicted that a year ago on my Twitter for anyone. But anyway.
That's true. I remember.
So happening.
I do remember that. I remember that tweet because
yeah.
I follow your Artis.
Yeah, absolutely. And by the way, for our viewers, we're going to post Pat's contact info and Twitter at the end of the show because you should get in touch with him. And but let me pick right back up on, so that was at Cryptic Chatter, but your poetry has actually gone. There's a few poems you've gone abroad. Your poetry's been in the U.S. Even right. Real estate agents have used some of your poetry for marketing. Tell us a little bit about that.
Yes, absolutely. Back in my News for You days, which I will go back to working to some degree for News for You, just not as my full-time job. I will never have that wonderful luxury again. I had
never say never.
I had emails sent to me. No, I will be getting into more of the life of my poetry and my dreams, shall we say, in the future. But News for You will be part of it. It will not be all of it. I will be doing other things in the social justice community.
But your poem about divorce.
I wrote a poem called "In the House Where I Grew Up," which is a poem about my childhood and about my parents ultimately splitting up in early 20s. For a long time, I stayed away from writing about very personal, very confessional things, and I also stayed away from writing about my religious beliefs and my political views. Now, pretty much, my poetry is largely confessional as a result of some of the changes that came along while I was working for News for You. And I actually wrote that poem the day I met the great Kildare Dobbs. For some reason, even though I was in such a great mood that evening, I felt freed to write that poem that had been welling up inside of me for a long time. And then it got posted by Zouch magazine and Miscellany online, and got a lot of hits all over the world. And then a couple of American real estate agents emailed me to my News for You email address and said, "Is it okay if we use this poem to sell houses? We'll post it on our website." They didn't pay me for it, but it got me more hits on the poem, and then, more people got to read it. I'm like, sure, and it's just amazing because, well, the divorce rate is about 50%, so
Yeah.
as a result, it makes it real, and my poem helped sell houses, I guess.
Yeah, twice. It was.
Yeah, or two different real estate agents with different companies, I believe.
And it's a good poem, The House Where I Grew Up.
Thank you.
It's, and for those of our viewers who'd like to see some of Pat's work, he will have a featurette in Artis 5, and he also has some work in the Artis 2 magazine. But The House Where I Grew Up was in Part-Time Contemplative?
In the house where I grew up was in Scarborough Songs, I believe, wasn't it?
Okay. And people can find those out through Lyrical Miracle Press.
That's right. But you got to contact the email on the Lyrical Miracle website and tell Luciano that you want copies of Part-Time Contemplative and Scarborough Songs, because he hasn't been keeping a lot of those in stock lately. I'm currently out of stock except for a
'cause
couple
they
of
sold
copies.
out.
So, yeah, that's true. Oh, yeah, I sold about 300 of Scarborough Songs, and probably about half that many of Part-Time Contemplative. I wasn't as aggressive in selling that because the Cuba book was coming out. The Cuba book was actually supposed to come out in 2016.
Well, we're gonna
Circumstances
get to
caused it to
that,
come out
though.
in 2017, and also because I'm working towards a full manuscript, which will be
Oh, I
larger
know,
scale
it's
and more
very
mass
much under
marketed.
wraps, but we're going to
Yes,
try and
yes.
see what we can tease out of you. So, let's talk about, before we get to Cuba, which also, again, changed your poetry, just like you became more confessional when you were working for News for You. I think, let's talk about 100,000 Poets for Change.
Sure.
You've got, for this Saturday's event at the High Root Cafe and
That's right.
Restaurant, Ethiopian restaurant, at, I think it's 2050 Danforth. It's
You
on-
got it, 2050 Danforth Avenue on the north side, just west of Woodbine.
And you've got some
Wonderful
of the biggest
Ethiopian
names
food.
there.
And
you're raising money for Shannon's Dream.
That's right. Our wonderful committee is coming together again and putting on a great event. I'm your humble host. The readers will be Donna Langevin, Luciano Jacobelli, who is the proprietor of Lyrical Miracles. So email him.
Yeah.
Marcia Barber, Dane Swan, Brenda Clues, Georgia Wilder, and Charles Smith.
Yeah, a very good list of names. Absolutely. Yeah, all of those huge names on the scene. Georgia Wilder runs Wild Writers,
Yes.
Reading Series. Luciano runs Lyrical Miracle.
And Quattro Press.
Yep, absolutely. Dane Swan is an award-winning writer, novelist, and poet. It's going to be a fabulous night. I'm going to be there.
Great.
And the food, I must say, is very good at the High Root as well.
I am a meatitarian, and I will be having the non-veg. Their main things are the vegetarian plate and the non-vegetarian plate. But the vegetarian plate is my favorite vegetarian food in the city.
Yeah,
It's
the venue
absolutely
will be
outstanding.
packed. It's huge.
Be
And-
there at 6 o'clock because seating is limited. It comfortably seats 30 to 40 people. I expect there to be that many people there. Come there at 6 o'clock and eat because the event will be starting just before 7 o'clock.
Okay, perfect. And now, but so Shannon's Dream. Let's talk a little bit about First Nations caring. I know you've already raised about $300 for this organization. Shannon's Dream, the girl, she died tragically, and the foundation was started in her name posthumously. She wanted to change conditions in schools and housing in the Attawapiskat region area on the reserves there,
And for
succeed-
all First Nations schools in Canada, absolutely.
And she did. A school was built in her name, so she did
That's right.
actually succeed in that.
They actually started building it on what would have been the day of her high
2012,
school
I think.
graduation, June 22nd, 2012,
Yeah.
and then it was opened in 2014. She actually had to leave the reservation to go to school in New Liskeard, which is several hundred miles by car. To go to high school. She could not go to high school on the reserve. Think about it. If you had to go away to university or whatever, the military, whatever, when you left high school, that would have been a very stressful time for you. It would have been a very difficult time for you. She had to do that when she started high school.
But how did you hear about her?
I heard about her because one of the people who has been very instrumental in our committee over the years, Robert Priest, said that this is who we have to host this event in honor of. What has happened for years, I've put on some great events for 100,000 Poets for Change. Our good friend Norman Koostachin once said to me, okay, great poetry, great job, Pat, but what are you really trying to change? What are you really trying to do? So the committee got together and we're brainstorming, and the consensus was we had to do something for First Nations. Robert
Very
has
good.
actually been on up to Attawapiskat, and he said that that Shannen's Dream is the foundation that we have to start supporting, and it's going to be an ongoing relationship.
Yeah, absolutely. And you said last year when you ran the 100,000 Poets for Change, which I should mention, I did mention it's global, however, it takes place in September worldwide. You can Google it and find out more. You started raising money for Shannen's Dream last year, right?
That's right. That was the first year where we actually committed ourselves to having it as a benefit for a charity. We have had literature tables for different organizations to educate people about Amnesty International and Greenpeace and so forth. But this is the first year where we really, last year was the first year where we really sunk our teeth in
and did it. And all proceeds go and continue to go
Every
to
cent.
Shannen's
Yeah.
Dream. And now, what is your Canadian connection to
Well,
the American founders who started
absolutely.
100,000 Poets in 2011, and it's taken off?
Definitely. Michael Rothenberg and his partner Terry Carrion began 100,000 Poets for Change in Sacramento, California in 2011. I think when they first started calling it 100,000 Poets for Change, I think that was kind of a joke. But now, as Ivy said earlier, 120 countries over the world.
Including places like Africa,
Absolutely.
Ethiopia,
Absolutely.
Britain. I mean, it's even in Asia. It's
Yep.
India. It's everywhere.
Definitely,
Even
definitely.
in places you wouldn't expect. There's movements. I mean, I ran the one in 2014. We raised money
That's
for
right.
Red Door.
Yep.
What's beautiful about 100,000 Poets for Change is any organizer that decides to undertake it can choose who they want to,
Exactly.
what kind of a cause they want to raise money for and bring awareness to.
And by all means, please just host an event under that cause. I mean, we're doing it on September the 22nd. The official date is September 29th. There's still time if you want to do that. Get in touch with Michael Rothenberg on Facebook. If you want me to facilitate you getting in touch with Michael Rothenberg, I'm more than happy to help. I've connected Michael to Bruce Kaufman in Kingston, my good friend who runs Poetry Festival there, and he said, how can I run something for 100,000 poets? So I put him in touch with them. My dear friend Janine Pitas, who is a professor at Dubuque University,
Yeah.
she's been involved with 100,000 Poets since it began. She and I read at the first one in 2011, and she's a part of our committee still. But this year she can't actually make it to Toronto for our event. But for the second year, she's hosting an event in Dubuque. So I mean, I've helped, extend the network.
Absolutely.
So
Well,
I
and
can
we're-
help you out if you want to do things. And believe me, I can send poets your way too. We have 7 readers at our event. I have had at least 30 people approach me wanting to read at my event this year, and that's typical. I would love to accommodate
it's-
everybody, but
Well, you know what, though? Your event stands out. As the Toronto event, it is one of the standout events.
it
and
does stand out not only because of the class of poets involved, but the fact that they are a part of this committee. We work together collaboratively to put on an outstanding event every year. These are readers who are members of the League of Canadian Poets and the Writers' Union of Canada and so forth. And because of that, and because of their reputation, and because of their incredible skill, they are entitled to a $150 honorarium for doing any kind of a reading.
Amazing.
They waive their honorarium, and they're helping raise funds, and they
good
kick in
people.
a few bucks themselves as well, and help plan the event.
And
you
like
know?
you said to me the other day, what makes your event different is you guys stand for something.
Yes.
And at one point you were running two events a year. Now you're down
Absolutely.
to one because you believe in doing one.
I want to put
quality
out
event.
one really superlative event. I don't want to be completely exhausted at the end of it, and I want to be able to move forward with other projects afterward and not be completely burnt out. I'll be completely honest with you.
And that brings us to Cuba, though.
Yes.
2017.
Yes.
That changed your poetry. I know you do a lot for the Cuban people. I've seen you on the scene in Toronto, various Cuban events. You're very passionate about Cuba, about the underdog. You're not afraid to talk about politics.
Not at all.
Even the recent changes with, obviously, the Trump administration, the embargo was lifted by Obama, and now the Republicans have put it back in place, as I understand.
That's right. Yeah, literally the month after I wrote a poem about my experiences in Cuba, not the one I'm going to read today, but a second one that came out really well. And the embargo was not on at that time, and this was from a conversation we were having about how the embargo was lifted and the changes are coming and everything else. Literally 3 weeks later, Mr. Trump announced that the embargo was back on. And
so how is
it's not a good thing. The only good thing about it is it doesn't compromise the Cuban culture, because the concern is that, you know, there would be a Starbucks on the corner of every street in Havana as a result of the embargo being dropped.
Now, what is it about Cuba that touches your heart, if you could say in one sentence?
The Cuban people are wonderful. They're very passionate. They're very globally conscious. If you meet real Cuban people, they will love you. They will take you in as a member of their family. My heart goes out to them. They are often forgotten by different countries of the world. Different countries of the world take them on as a cause célèbre and then forget about them. And it's unfair, and we have to show solidarity with the Cuban people and throughout Latin America. I think it's very important for us to do that.
And now your upcoming collection, I think it gets a bit more political, right?
There's definitely a political component to my poetry. There is politics underlying in a lot of my work, for sure.
And now your upcoming collection. It's very under wraps. Is there anything you want to reveal about it? I know it's coming out soon, probably in the next year or so.
I am hopeful of having it come out in the next 12 to 14 months, I guess, let's say. I'm fairly certain that a major publisher who has a worldwide distribution or through large portions of the world has interest in working with me on this project. And that is all I can say about it now until things become more official. But you'll be one of the first ones to know, Ivy.
Yes,
I promise you that.
Thank you. Well, then I think let's post your contact information on the screen for our viewers, because they can find you on Facebook. And that
Absolutely.
way, of course, I won't be
and
the
also,
only one
please
to know.
look on Facebook for 100,000 Poets for Change Toronto 2018 event. And click going and come.
Absolutely. I'm going to be there. I
Wonderful.
can't wait. It's always a good event when Pat hosts. It's going to be a room full of people, probably about 30 people at least, if not 40.
I'm hopeful that we get into the 30 to 40 range.
I'm pretty sure
when we
will.
had it at the Black Swan, we actually probably had closer to 80, 90 people.
Yep.
The year we had it at Poetry Jazz Cafe, there was like probably 15 to 20 people, but that was actually one of the best ones, just because the poets
Intimate
were
is
really
sometimes
into it,
nice.
and it was really engaged. You know what that venue is like. Like
absolutely.
everybody was
It's
really
tight.
together and really interacting with each other. It was a special afternoon in that respect.
Absolutely. Well, reach out to Pat. He's very active on Facebook. Follow him on Twitter. Click on the 100,000 Poets for Change event. The link will also be up there for Shannen's Dream, so you can find out more about FirstNationsCaring.org and
Absolutely.
about this young lady that did so much for her people before she tragically died in a car accident at the age of 15. Check it out. Find out more. Contact Pat. And if you follow him on Facebook, you're going to find out when his upcoming book launches. And he's on the GTA scene reading live probably at least once a month. And,
I'm pretty active. Yeah, the fall is usually quiet. I do have a reading coming up in in November in the Words and Music Salon at the Transact, the first Saturday of November, which I believe is the 3rd.
Yes.
That's from 12:30 to 3:30 in the afternoon. That's the only feature or formal reading that I have during the fall.
Yeah, during
and
the
the fall is usually quiet. I might do one other. I have been involved with my organization I'm part of, the Scarborough Poetry Club, as a mentor. Working with people on their poetry, and we are having a big show on Saturday, October the 6th at Agincourt Public Library at 1 o'clock in the afternoon, and that this is a paid mentorship through the Cultural Hotspot via Scarborough Arts and Scarborough
And you
Poetry
post all this
Club.
on Facebook, right?
I sure do.
All the more reason to reach out to Pat there. And we're going to wrap with, you want to read a poem for us?
I would love to.
Tell me a little bit about this before you read.
So, this is my first full day in the beautiful Pearl of Ibarra, Cuba, in Holguín Province, where I was staying at La Perla Hermosa, which is a casa particular, kind of like a bed and breakfast, and that literally means beautiful pearl, and that is also the nickname for the beautiful town of Ibarra, Cuba.
Beautiful.
And I was sitting in my room at midday because it was already blisteringly hot. This is after leaving Toronto, where it was like -10 the day before, and it was a bit of a shock that first day in the middle of January. But after that, I enjoyed it quite a bit, and so I was just sitting quietly, kind of getting my thoughts together and everything else. And this is my first full day in Cuba. The Rooster and the Piglet. Midday in January, I sit alone at La Perla Hermosa in sweltering heat, organizing my thoughts so I can record them. Close by, the Rooster and the Piglet perform the 108th rendition of their 108-act dialogue. The rooster crows around the clock, as if it were always the break of day, waits 1 or 2 seconds for the piglet's reply. If the piglet doesn't reply, the rooster crows again. Sometimes the piglet bleats, and the rooster waits 3 or 4 seconds before he crows again. Sometimes they cry at the same time. Sometimes a yelping dog will join them. In spite of this, I slept well last night. I have done nothing since I got here except share 2 meals with friends, old and new. I don't know when my next meal is or how to ask for it, but I am relaxed. I know in a few days I must return to my ordered and organized life. I don't want to, yet I know I will also be happy when I go back.
That's beautiful.
Thank you, Ivy.
That is so beautiful. And you do go back to Cuba quite a bit.
I have not been back.
What?
I definitely want to go to back. Well, last year's tour
Launch?
got canceled because of the hurricane.
Oh, true.
Ibarra
true.
was flattened
I
again,
remember-
as it
yes.
was in 2006, and there were parts of Ibarra that had still not recovered from 2006 when I was there in 2017. And then they got hammered again. And also at my day job as a marketing manager, that's when we make a lot of money, is January and February. So they let me go to Cuba because they know how important my poetry is to me.
Well,
and they know I will be a miserable such and such if they don't let me. So
Well.
I'm very glad that they worked with me and let me go, but that's an awkward time of the year for me to go. And I mean, last year's trip
That's all right.
got called off because of the hurricane. I definitely plan on going there. I didn't even go to Holguín City the last time I was there. That was actually where the launch was supposed to happen. Because of me not being able to make that part of the trip, the official launch was in Ibarra.
Yeah, but that's an incredible feat. And that book came out, the poem you just read is in Bottom of the
Wine Jar.
Sandcrab Press, which is an imprint of Hidden Book Press.
Absolutely.
With Richard M. Grove, fabulous press house. And people can order that online too, right?
People can order that online, but I've got a whole box of books. So you know what? If you want to buy it, you can get it directly from me. I have a whole box of books that I haven't even opened yet. So
Well,
please get in touch with me.
thank you so much.
$20 plus postage, or meet me in person, and
Yeah,
I'll give it
come
to you
out.
and sign it for you.
Come out tomorrow night and meet Pat. Thank you so much for tuning in, Pat. Thank you
Thank
so
you,
much
Ivy.
for
This has
being
been
here.
wonderful.
I'm looking forward to tomorrow. Thank you, everybody. We'll be back in a few. And once again, this was the Artis with Ivy Reiss, and our special guest was Pat Connors, poet, host, and writer. Thank you.